The leader of Blood Fang, confident that their opponent is merely a lone noble person while they boast numerous armed men, believes victory is assured. However, their confidence shatters as they witness all their men being mercilessly slain by a man named Roman Dimitri. Roman drags the Blood Fang leader to the center of the plaza, where the crowd immediately recognizes him. Addressing the shocked audience, Roman makes it clear that the crimes committed by Blood Fang are undeniable, and he intends to purge the evil from their midst by executing their leader on the spot. Among the astonished onlookers is Captain Jonathan, who has just arrived at the scene. Meanwhile, a guard informs the lords present that they had allowed Roman to enter the land, given his connection as Miss Flora's fiancé. However, within an hour of his arrival, he appeared with the Blood Fang leader in tow, declaring the man's identity before executing him publicly. Outraged by the apparent murder without the Lord's permission, one man insists that this matter cannot be overlooked, and the Lord orders Roman Dimitri to be summoned before them. Roman enters the room accompanied by Jonathan. Baron Lawrence, believing that Jonathan played a role in Roman's violent actions, greets him with suspicion. The Baron questions why Roman would come all the way to Lawrence to commit such a brutal act. The Baron reprimands Roman, stating that he had no authority to carry out an execution within Lawrence's boundaries. In response, Roman justifies his actions by revealing that the identity of the Blood Fang leader was widely known in Lawrence due to his numerous crimes. Despite this knowledge, Lawrence had taken no action against him, leading Roman to believe that he had to take matters into his own hands. Roman confidently asks the Baron if he truly believes he did something wrong by getting rid of such a notorious criminal. The Baron, wanting to avoid further discussion on the matter, decides to reward Roman for his deed instead. Later, the Baron reflects on the situation, feeling pleased that his future son-in-law possesses such determination and courage. He had previously doubted Roman's suitability for Flora, but witnessing his gutsy actions changed his opinion. He now even affectionately calls Flora by her name. Jonathan, on the other hand, is taken aback by this newfound side of Roman, realizing that there's much more to him than he had ever imagined. Next, we glimpse Baek Jung-yuk during his childhood, when his father heartlessly abandons him in a cave with other kids, demanding that he prove his worthiness. Baek Jung-yuk endures beatings from the other children who try to fight back, but he wonders why his parents would throw him into a world where strength reigns supreme, without offering any protection. Meanwhile, Roman takes a bath and contemplates the many experiences he has had since awakening in this new world. Although inhabiting Roman's body, his way of living is still akin to Baek Jung-yuk's. He realizes the danger of acting impulsively and resolves to become stronger quickly. A servant interrupts his thoughts, informing him that the Lord is summoning him. Jonathan reports the incident to Lord Remora, expressing surprise at Roman's feat in annihilating the Blood Fang Group. Remora is impressed by Roman's accomplishments, considering he had been a commoner's child. He wishes for Roman to live a happy life and is willing to support him in any way. As Roman enters the room and gazes at his father, he understands that the words he is about to speak could alter his life entirely. The weight of his actions and the truth he must reveal hangs heavily on him. In another scene, the young Baek Jung-yuk, tired of being beaten, retaliates by picking up a stone and striking one of his attackers on the head. The assailant falls, and Baek Jung-yuk seizes the opportunity to gain control. He defeats the aggressor, declaring himself the new leader of the cave. Finally, Roman confesses to his father, admitting to what he had done. The revelation will undoubtedly have significant consequences for his life and relationships. The scene shifts to the training ground, where people are honing their skills. Roman, Remora, and Jonathan enter the area, and everyone present shows their respect and greets Lord Remora. Captain Jonathan announces that they will have a duel with young Master Roman as one of the participants. The crowd is taken aback by this decision, surprised that they have to face someone they consider an idiot. An hour before the duel, Roman discusses his recent victory over the leader of Blood Fang with his father. He reveals that he had been training in secret, eager to achieve something on his own despite being perceived as an idiot from the Dimitri family. Roman's father inquires if he can witness his son's swordsmanship, and Roman eagerly agrees to show him. However, when the challenge is put forth to the other trainees, nobody seems willing to fight Roman. They believe that even if they were to defeat him, it would bring them no honor or gain, given his reputation. In response, Jonathan calls upon Chris, the vice captain of the Dimitri Knights, who had encountered Roman a year ago during a restaurant altercation. Chris had tried to intervene but was dismissed and slapped by Roman at the time. He once considered Roman a pathetic and worthless individual, a disgrace to the Dimitri family. Yet now he is forced to face him in this duel. Chris questions Jonathan about his training, as he was taught to treat any duel as a real fight and not to show mercy to the opponent. Roman, sporting a confident smile, seems unfazed, which only serves to infuriate Chris further. The atmosphere intensifies as both sides prepare for the impending duel. To everyone's astonishment, Roman expertly blocks Chris's strike with an impressively stable defensive posture. Chris is taken aback by Roman's unexpected skill and begins to attack again, but Roman effortlessly dodges and parries all of his moves. In a swift motion, Roman swings his sword, cutting a few strands of Chris's hair. The onlookers are left in awe at Roman's display of prowess. With the warm-up concluded, Roman takes the offensive. He initiates a dazzling chain of attacks, but Chris discerns that Roman's movements are relatively broad, providing an opportunity. Chris counters, yet Roman quickly evades the attack, wearing a smug expression on his face. Despite his initial confidence, Chris starts to doubt his chances of winning against Roman. Determined not to be defeated, Chris harnesses his aura, enhancing his attacks. A spectacle unfolds as they clash intensely, causing a commotion around them. Lord Remora grows worried about Roman's safety, but Roman deftly maneuvers through the encounter, finding an opening and lands a decisive strike on Chris. The crowd gasps in amazement as Chris is defeated by Roman's exceptional skills. Jonathan and Chris engage in a sparring session. Chris, an impressive 2-star Aura Knight, displays incredible swordsmanship, leading Jonathan to regard him as a genius. However, both of them were surprised when Roman defeated Chris, who was considered the most accomplished 2-star Aura Knight of the Dimitri family. Lord Remora questions Jonathan about Chris's defeat, as he was highly esteemed within the ranks. Roman, reflecting on the situation, wonders why Jonathan takes such pride in Chris's skills. From Roman's perspective, Chris may be a skilled warrior, capable of dealing with the Blood Fang on his own, but compared to Roman's standards, he is far from being exceptional. Nonetheless, Roman is taken aback when Chris unveils his powerful attack during the duel. Lord Remora is delighted that his son's talent in swordsmanship is recognized, and he praises Roman for achieving something on his own. Remora offers Roman a fitting reward and inquires about his desire. Roman seizes the opportunity and asks for the right to select his own men for the upcoming battlefield deployment within the next 6 months. Remora grants his request. Surprised by the young lord's interest in learning aura, Chris agrees to teach Roman. In return, Jonathan proposes to teach Chris all of his skills and knowledge. The scene shifts, and Hans praises Roman for his victory over a 2-star Aura Knight like Chris. Curious about aura, Roman asks Hans about its nature. Hans explains that aura is the power to use mana, the eruption of energy that Roman felt during the duel. After Chris explains aura to Roman, detailing its connection to mana usage and how it differs between magicians and knights, he shares the story of Emperor Alexandro, the first person to discover how to strengthen the physical body by storing mana throughout it. Chris admits that becoming an aura knight is a challenging path, and sensing mana alone took him about half a year, while for others, it could take even longer. Eager to begin training, Roman surprises Chris by revealing that he can already sense mana and has manifested it throughout his body. Astonished by Roman's progress, Chris hadn't noticed that Roman had already achieved what he was explaining. Roman's background as a heavenly demon in his previous life allowed him to store mana in small portions, granting him a head start. Amused, Roman laughs at the notion that Chris had diligently trained for 10 years without questioning the effectiveness of their method. Chris becomes upset, feeling his 10 years of effort were disrespected. However, Roman explains that his training was crucial, but the lack of questioning the method hindered his progress. Chris, humbled, asks Roman what he should do moving forward. Long ago, the formidable blood demon, known for his strength, faced an inevitable battle against Baek Jung-yuk. Despite his power, Blood Demon ultimately lost the fight. However, he chose to set aside his pride and asked to be taught by Baek Jung-yuk. Now, Chris follows the same path, seeking a way to become stronger. He approaches Roman, asking for guidance. The next morning, Chris informs Jonathan of his decision to follow the young master to the battlefield. Seeing Chris's determination, Jonathan agrees, and he declares that from now on, Chris will not be considered a Dimitri knight. He recognizes the transformation in Chris, remembering a time when the child wept for his deceased mother on the battlefield. Jonathan arranges for Chris to have a weapon he can call his own, acknowledging his newfound resolve. Word spreads about Roman's triumph over the Blood Fang, reaching the ears of a man named Kevin. Inspired by the idea of being strong enough to protect those around him, Kevin wishes he could be like the young master. Suddenly, Roman appears before him, and Kevin falls to his knees, thanking him for his family's survival. Roman offers Kevin an opportunity. In exchange for pledging his loyalty, he will be free from financial worries and have a warm home and ample food. Kevin pledges his loyalty with his own blood, ready to live and die on Roman's command. Roman is reminded of one of his men from the Murim world, who would do anything upon his command. Roman declares that from now on, Kevin belongs to him. In the following scene, Roman instructs Hans to take care of Kevin and help him acclimate to his new life. Grateful for Roman's assistance, Kevin thanks him, and Roman assures them that he can be found in the library if they need anything. To become an Aura Knight, one must first manifest Aura, granting them the title of a 1-star Aura Knight. To attain 2 stars, they must be able to cut steel using Aura. Beyond this, 3-star Knights possess strength beyond comprehension and receive special treatment from the kingdom. Roman learns that there are 12 individuals known as the 12 Blades of the Continent, who have reached the level of 6-star Knights and are treated like royalty, regardless of their race or nationality. Their power and impact in battles are extraordinary. In the world of magicians, those who reach the 7th circle are granted the title of Archmage, considered to be half human and half god, and wield even greater power than 6-star Knights. Roman realizes that he may eventually face such formidable opponents and understands that to live like Baek Jong-yuk, he must continue to grow stronger. Hans leads Roman to an old workshop where his father used to work. Roman plans to spend the next week there, immersed in his training. He asks Hans not to disturb him unless there is a dire emergency. A week later, Baron Lawrence and his daughter Flora visit Dimitri, seeking Roman. The servant asks them to wait in the waiting room as the young master is busy with some matters. The Baron informs Flora that they have come to apologize for their previous mistakes, cautioning her to be careful with her words. Flora had informed her father about the cancellation of the marriage, and he becomes furious with her hasty decision. Concerned about the approaching Barco's attack, the Baron fears losing everything. As the hours pass, Hans becomes worried since Baron Lawrence and Lady Flora have been waiting since morning, and Roman hasn't emerged from the workshop. Finally, the door opens, and to Hans's surprise, he had never expected to see something like that. Baron Lawrence's anger escalates as they have been waiting since morning until the afternoon. He decides to find Baron Dimitri to question why they were treated so cruelly, made to wait for half a day. Arriving at Baron Dimitri's place, he expresses his frustration, stating that they had already informed Roman of their intention to visit a week ago. If the Dimitri family had declined their visit, they wouldn't have been offended by this treatment. Baron Dimitri, composed in his response, asks if they are only there to express their anger about the waiting time. He reminds them that during Flora's previous visit, Roman had shared his intention to break off the marriage, and he knew that Flora was the reason behind this decision. However, Baron Dimitri did not question Roman about it. He also informs them that a month ago, Barcos had offered a marriage proposal to the Dimitri family instead of Lawrence. The Dimitri family declined the offer, as they had their own reasons, which they personally preferred. Baron Lawrence realizes his mistake in hastily reacting with anger. He admits that he knew Flora and Roman might not be an ideal match, considering Roman's reputation as a trash of the Dimitri family. However, he acknowledges that Roman is still a Dimitri, and the name holds its own value. Flora reflects on her past, recalling a similar situation in school where a child made a mistake and their father apologized to the teacher. She sees herself and her father in a similar predicament now, apologizing to Baron Dimitri. Just then, a servant announces the arrival of young Master Roman, catching both barons by surprise. They witness him in a new form, and his father inquires if he is done with his training. Roman confirms this, understanding the situation in the room. He reveals that he is aware of the tensions between the Lawrence and Barkos families. However, he shares that after meeting Flora and hearing her thoughts, he had a change of heart. He realized he wanted to spend his life with someone who judges him based on personal experiences and not just rumors or family reputation. Therefore, he firmly expresses his desire to keep the marriage broken and keep his statement unchanged. Baron Lawrence contemplates the situation and realizes they must resolve their family issues within the Lawrence family. Despite the tension, he is grateful to the Dimitri family for not accepting the Barkos' offer and deciding to join with them. He apologizes once more to the Dimitri family and departs with his daughter, Flora. Later, Roman's father inquires about his son's experiences over the past week. Roman explains that during that time he was inside the shed, diligently purging all the impurities from his body to reach the human stage. This process was crucial in laying the foundation for his body's transformation, which led to significant changes in his physical appearance. He shares with his father that during his training, he successfully began circulating mana throughout his body, which astonishes his father. The fact that his son, who was once considered an idiot of the Dimitri family, accomplished such a feat is a remarkable achievement. After leaving the room, Roman encounters Flora waiting outside. She apologizes for judging him too quickly, but he reassures her that there is no need to apologize. Flora then shares the reason why she initially wanted to break off the engagement. She had heard a rumor during the gathering of royal families in the Northeast that Roman enjoyed doing drugs. However, she now realizes that those rumors were false, and she regrets believing them. Roman tells Flora that whatever happened in the past doesn't change their relationship, and she doesn't need to worry about it. Curious about the incident, Roman asks Hans if he had ever seen him doing drugs. Hans recounts that a month ago, after returning from the gathering, Roman seemed to be in an odd state. He requested excessive amounts of alcohol and stayed in his room without leaving. Hans thought Roman might have gotten his hands on drugs during the party. When Roman inquires about the party's host, Hans reveals that it was Anthony Barko, the eldest son of the Barkos family, which reveals more of the path in front of him. Several things were bothering Roman about his previous life and his death. In his will letter, he was supposed to go to the battlefield instead of his two younger siblings. However, he was already promised to marry Flora, which provided many ways to avoid going to war. Roman couldn't understand why he had chosen to end his life. Roman asked Hans if he was close with Anthony Barko. Hans replied that recently they were on bad terms after talks of the marriage with the Lawrence family. Roman realized that the marriage between the Dimitri and Lawrence families was a significant obstacle for the Barko family. To stop the alliance, they must have resorted to extreme measures against Roman, ultimately leading him to take his own life. A few days ago, they received an invitation from the Barko family. Roman decided to attend the party, possibly seeking answers or taking matters into his own hands. Hans brought Kevin to meet young Master Roman, advising him not to be surprised by his new appearance. Kevin was shocked to see Roman's transformation. Roman explained to Kevin that his role would be to be his sword. He presented 3 paths for Kevin to choose: to be his hand, to learn from him without engaging in bloodshed, to be his sword and protect him by his side, or to cut off his hand and endure excruciating pain to become stronger at a faster rate. Kevin, who had grown up struggling to survive outside the castle of Dimitri, was inspired by Roman's overwhelming strength. He decided to become Roman's sword and swung the sword with determination. Meanwhile, Chris asked Hans about Roman, and Hans informed him that Roman was talking with Kevin. Chris was surprised to learn that Kevin had cut off his hand, but Roman assured them that it was an illusion created using the charm of the illusion demon. In truth, Kevin had not lost his hand, but Roman was excited to see how both Kevin and Chris would grow in the next 6 months. Roman tells Kevin that he will teach him the mana enhancement technique, the same dangerous technique that the Mad Demon used. This technique allows users to display immense power under extreme pain, but it also eats away at their spirit. Curious, Kevin asks Roman why he trusts him so much, considering he could betray him after learning the technique. Roman simply replies, "It's just because," implying that he believes Kevin won't betray him. Roman trusts that as Kevin spends more time with him, he will come to understand the gravity of betraying a heavenly demon and the consequences that come with it. Roman begins teaching Kevin the mana enhancement technique, and Chris watches their training. Chris wonders why Roman is teaching this peculiar kid instead of him, but he decides to wait and observe for a little while. Days pass by with Roman focusing on training Kevin, and Chris becomes impatient. After 2 weeks, he confronts Roman, questioning why he hasn't taught him anything. Roman explains that he told Chris to observe and learn from the situation. For Kevin, who knows nothing, Roman needs to start from the basics and guide him through the whole process. To test Kevin's skills, Roman gives Chris a sword and instructs him to spar with Kevin. Roman will advise Kevin on how to defeat Chris during the fight. Initially scared to fight a knight, Kevin agrees to the spar. Chris starts attacking, but Kevin manages to block the strikes. Chris tries to kick him, but Kevin dodges it. Through sound conduction using mana, Roman gives Kevin real-time instructions on how to counter Chris's attacks. Kevin is amazed at his master's ability to control the situation so precisely. As the spar continues, Kevin impressively dodges Chris's critical attacks and even manages to counterattack. Chris, one of the greatest geniuses of the Dimitri Knights, is astounded that Kevin is handling him so well just by following Roman's commands. Kevin launches an attack on Chris, but he ultimately gets beaten up. However, he remains undeterred and even laughs, ready to keep going. Chris charges towards Roman in anger, but Roman remains calm and instructs him to step forward and attack. However, Chris evades the attack, having learned from his previous mistakes. Roman then tells Chris to turn around and charge, observing how wide his movements are. Chris prepares to attack again, but suddenly notices Roman silently signaling Kevin to dodge and counterattack. This time, Chris is ready and dodges Kevin's attack before knocking him out with a well-placed strike. Roman informs Chris that he will start teaching him from the next day if he desires, but he leaves the choice up to Chris. In his room, Chris reflects on the experience, realizing that without that spar with Roman, he would have undoubtedly lost to Kevin's mana-enhanced techniques. He acknowledges how much he has grown just from that one experience. The next morning, Chris informs Roman that he doesn't need formal teaching and has decided to follow him and learn from observing his actions. He has learned valuable lessons from Roman, just like he was teaching Kevin. Chris is determined to observe and learn from Roman's teachings to improve his skills. A week passes, and the day of the social gathering hosted by Barco arrives. A week before the social party, news of the cancellation of the marriage between Roman Dimitri and Flora Lawrence spreads like wildfire, reaching the ears of Anthony Barco, the eldest son of the Barco family. He sees this as an opportunity, believing that Roman is easily manipulable, and eagerly awaits the social party where he knows Roman will be present. On the day of the social party, Hans has prepared a formal dress for Roman, though he is not keen on wearing it. Nevertheless, for Hans's sake, he agrees to don the attire. Meanwhile, Chris waits for Kevin, who arrives in his armor, still trying to get used to it. Seeing Kevin in that state, Chris recalls how he almost lost a fight to someone who doesn't even know how to wear armor properly. Chris reminds Kevin that they are escorting the young master, and their actions must reflect well on Roman's reputation. As the social gathering commences, people discuss the idiot of Dimitri as a hot topic. However, one girl, Sophia Grizel from the Grizel family, is curious about Roman. She asks another partygoer what kind of man Roman Dimitri is. He replies that she will see for herself when she meets him. Sophia approaches Roman and greets him, mentioning her family's history dating back centuries and their dedication to the Kingdom of Cairo. Roman shows his knowledge about her family's lumber business, renowned for its high quality in the kingdom. With Roman's amiable demeanor, more people start approaching him to greet and converse. Sophia is impressed with his manners and friendliness. A servant comes to inform Roman that the young master has invited him to a back room. In another area, Chris and Kevin encounter some guards who insult them, mocking their incompetence at wearing helmets properly. They ridicule the level of the Dimitri guards due to this perceived lack of basic skills. Thanks to everyone for watching the video. Please do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are hooked on this type of content. If you are interested in checking out Part 3, do not forget to comment down below.